Hey guys, okay, sorry, earlier on the load shedding caused the system to crash. So I'm just wanting to finish this lecture. So if when you access the notes on YouTube, on the YouTube link, you will see that these make the notes complete. Okay, so we were busy speaking about creativity, in the context of organization, how organizations are able to use creativity to innovate or innovation to create, be creative. Some theorists propose and thought and posit that the two are not mutually exclusive. Some say that they are. Excuse me, I think it's important for you to know that don't let theory influence your creative outputs. Allow yourself to be creative, whether you're in a creative environment or not. The only thing from being creative is your mind and yourself. But anyway, so where does creativity come from? The core components of creativity. So in the earlier lecture, we discussed creative skills, and then we also had a look at some of these elements. So we have the cognitive style, the creativity, and then also the working style. And you'll remember that I said to you, excuse me, in the previous lecture, that I don't believe that this formulaic way of looking at working style is really true to human form. No human being is ever 100% disciplined. Let's have a look at Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps has got 28 Olympic gold medals in his name. I'm sure even Michael Phelps had down days and off days, and I'm not by any means of the imagination trying to what is the word I'm looking for? Trying to justify, a mediocrity, a laziness, if you will. But all human beings have downtime, and they're not able to, function at 100% capacity always. So you do the very best that you can. But for example, as I said to you in the previous recording, high energy level, you can't have high energy levels all the time. It's not possible. High levels of productivity is not possible. Sometimes you're frustrated in the process. You don't actually know. If you're in an environment where you have no idea what it is that you're trying to create, how can you possibly be productive all the time? That is, so I don't, said you previously, don't necessarily agree with these definitions and these kinds of things. So yes, it's good to be internally motivated, to have an internal locus of control, as they call it, in psychology and in motivational fields, but it is not possible to always persevere in the face of frustration, and you need to persevere. Perseverance is probably the most important thing in a creative environment. Willingness to take risks, for example. Not every creative environment requires you to be a risk taker. In some cases, risk taking, as Richard Branson said in his book Screw It, Let's Do It, calculated risk, not risk for the sake of taking risks. I mean, if you're Evel Knievel and you decide to, fly over the Grand Canyon in your, motorbike and break through in your body, that is just foolishness. Okay, so he became famous for it. He, managed to break world records and that kind of thing, but at what cost to his health? So you can't always take risks. Okay, then always being self-initiated, task-orientated, striving for excellence. Guys, that is not possible as far as I'm concerned. You might say, well, that's not true. I think I'm a fairly high achiever. I think I've done with my time on this earth, as have you guys. You guys are fabulous students. And it's not. So I would really take this theory as a result. I'm not saying that the theory is necessarily not relevant. It's relevant. But as I said to you in the previous slide, I really want you to question what you are taught. So I've said to you there is no brand loyalty. Question that. And if you think there is brand loyalty, question that. In this instance over here, is it possible for us to constantly have these outputs at high energy levels and high output levels and constant productivity? No, especially if you're working in a creative environment where you don't know what it is that you're looking for. So there is a saying, I'm not sure who first came up with it, but it's like I think it's Peter Drucker had something to do with it. Now that we mentioned him, we spoke about him earlier today. Okay, so 3 states of being, for want of a better expression. And these are as follows: things that we know, things that we know we don't know, and things that we don't know we don't know. So in other words, things we know, So we know that the heart, that keeps us alive. Things that we know we don't know. So speaking about the heart, again, we can say, well, when was the last time you had your blood vessels checked? Are you developing coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease? Are you, so the things that we know, we don't know. So we're not sure about heart health, as an example. And things we don't know that we don't know. So maybe you were born with a, heaven forbid, a congenital heart defect, which means that what's going to happen is eventually your heart will stop beating sooner than somebody else's, and your tears will run out sooner than somebody else's because you will reach the end of your life span before. So that just as an example. I mean, take it out of the health space and put it into something else, space. The Indians, as you know, recently landed a probe on the southern pole, the south pole of the moon. Nobody's ever been there before. They're the fourth country in the world to have landed a probe on the moon. Excuse me, the United States, Russia, China, and now, of course, India. So 3 of the elements of the BRICS countries, Russia, India, China, which is very interesting. And we don't know. They suspect there's water on the south pole or near the south pole of the moon. We don't know all the details. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's out there. We still don't know if we are alone in the universe, if there are aliens. So it's all fine and well to think that you can work non-stop. You can't. You'll suffer from burnout. And some people have a high tolerance for endurance, and they can go for longer, and they don't burn out. Other people need to take it more easily. As she previously, a friend of mine who had myalgic encephalomyelitis, aka yuppie flu, got through her master's and then did her doctorate with very low energy levels and still did extremely well. She did her study, very interesting study. She did her study on human trafficking and chaos theory, very, very interesting. And she then she did that study at Nelson Mandela University, and then she then went to Stockholm, where she then did a further master's degree in health, in the medical fields, at a medical master's degree. And then she moved on to the UK, where she is practicing with the NHI, and she's offering psychological counseling, and so on and so forth over there. And she did that with very low energy levels and high levels of persistence, but low energy levels. And not every day was a productive day, and not every day was, she was doing. So question the theory and say, does this apply? Can you use it for your assignment, your FE, in which case go for it. If you can't, just be aware of the theory. We need to go through it. It's a bit dry and boring, as I said to you, but it's important to have gone through the theory. You have an understanding. Even dry and boring theory can sometimes find its place in your brain and in your heart that you can use later on. When you get into a work situation, you find that, oh, actually this theory is very applicable and can help me. Okay, so moving along then. So the second element in terms of creativity. So let's just quickly review. And then we see expertise over here is the next one, number 2. So expertise, as I was excuse me, as I've said to you previously, expertise is a combination of street smarts and book smarts. As it says over here, expertise represents a combination of knowledge of the existing facts and issues. So you could argue that those are book smarts concerning a specific area, combined with the experience necessary to be able to find feasible solutions to problems in that field. And that is your street smarts. Now, guys, if I had to hazard a guess based on my experience and based on the stuff that I've done for clients and based on my years on the earth, I would say that street smarts are more important than book smarts. If you had to choose between the two, book smarts are not important. I'm not saying book smarts aren't important. If you put the two together, you have a fatal combination, which is a wonderful thing. And by fatal, I mean a very powerful combination that will move you forward in creative endeavors, because you have both the experience and the training and knowledge to be very, very successful in your field. Okay, so what happens is you can then provide people with solutions based on your book smarts and your street smarts. But Generally speaking, and I'll say it again, Richard Branson didn't even finish matric, to my knowledge. He definitely didn't go to university. Mark Zuckerberg, who is a multi-billionaire, dropped out of Harvard. Bill Gates, who's a multi-billionaire, dropped out of Harvard. Steve Jobs dropped out of Stanford, or was an American college somewhere in California. I know he was sort of based in the San Francisco Bay Area, where all the high-tech companies have their head offices. Facebook is there, Google is there, YouTube is there. They're all based in the San Francisco Bay Area, which ironically is also where we have the highest incidence of fentanyl usage in the United States, and a serious drug developing issue in San Francisco, especially the downtown area, where the CBD of San Francisco is now starting to become like the CBD of Joburg. Companies are pulling out. They don't want to be there anymore. They don't want to rent space there. They don't want to have retail space there because it's becoming lots of homeless people who are addicted to drugs. And this, of course, is just down the road from Silicon Valley and, you know, some of the most high-tech companies in the world where people are earning a huge amount of money. So, guys, lots of people in various industries not have book smarts. They never studied the stuff. They just developed incredible working skills, and those skills then led them to success in their industry. So we have the same thing as well. If you have a look, excuse me, at people like the Beatles, Dolly Parton, Ed Sheeran, none of them have studied music, but they are very successful. ABBA, none of them have studied music. They're very successful. They understand how it works, how the industry works, how theory works, and they're able to put together some very songs that have inspired people to be happy and enjoy the music. So these are examples, guys, of people who have these street smarts, but not necessarily the book smarts. And for me personally, as somebody who's in the academic field, I like both. I like the fact that I can back my street smarts up with good book smarts, that I understand the reasoning behind. And you can take this information and apply it to your assignment. You could say, here are my street smarts, which are my popular sources, okay, that I'm using in my assignment. And here are my book smarts. These are my academic sources. When I put them together, excellent combination, dynamite. So you can see, guys, the last point over there, expertise arises from immersion and experience. So what happens is when people immerse themselves in situations, they pick up this experience and they can use that experience to then move themselves forward in a field of endeavor. And let me ask you the question: if you were in an airplane and something was going wrong in the airplane, would you want a pilot who had 20 years of on-the-job training, or would you want a pilot who had been through flight school but had only ever trained on a simulator? I'm sure you'd want the latter rather than the former. But what you'd really want is somebody who had both a pilot who has 20 years of on-the-job training and has been to flight school and has also honed his skills and has continued to upgrade his courses. I mean, apparently there was a chap, I think it was in the United States, might have been Europe somewhere, they found a pilot who actually wasn't a pilot, who'd been flying for 20 years and discovered he didn't actually have a pilot's license. They're like, dude, we have to obviously fire you because, you know, it is a huge liability. People find out, we could be sued as an airline. So really, guys, what you want both, and expertise then drives creativity. You will find that as your mind is developed through book smarts and street smarts, you will be able to become more adept at finding creative solutions. And this is the reasons why we've amended the assignment slightly to allow you guys to use both your book smarts and your street smarts to put together a fresh new campaign that is different to what has been done for your brand in the past. So I hope this makes sense to you, and I hope this explains things to you in a good way, and that will help you to be successful in your endeavor and also in your assignment, first of all, but then in whatever endeavor you decide to tackle next year when you finish your BBA degree. All right, let's have a look then at the next one, intrinsic motivation. So the greatest pleasure that life has to offer is the satisfaction that flows from participating in difficult and challenging undertaking. Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, this is what the chappie said. Okay, and what it boils down to is, and I again, as well, I don't necessarily agree with this, for me, the greatest pleasure that life has to offer is a satisfaction that knows that you listened to and obeyed your soul. Your soul said to you, you need to become a doctor, and you listened and became a doctor. Or your soul said to you, you need to become a media analyst and a media specialist, and you listened and obeyed your soul, and that's what you followed. So that for me is the most important thing. The greatest pleasure that you have in life is to follow your heart. Listen to your gut instinct, listen to your intuition, follow what your heart says, listen to your soul, and really and truly follow what makes you happy. Go and find your bliss. Go and find your passion. Now, passion as well is a difficult word because it comes from il passare, to suffer. But we do suffer in pursuit of our highest values, in pursuit of our passions, in pursuit of things that we love. And as Oprah says, if you're willing to do it for free, for no payment, you know that you have found your true calling. Think back to the Ikigai we discussed last week when we were doing the breakdown of creativity. So participating in a difficult and challenging undertaking, if you want to be working in a team, that's fine. If your difficult and challenging undertaking is on your own steam, if you're a loner, you like to work alone, then that can be very useful. So it can be, but the thing is that difficult. And he was quoting Lao Tzu or one of the Chinese philosophers or Chinese historians back in the day. Find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So that's the whole thing. So moving on to the next point, being motivated to do something for its own sake because the task in itself is pleasurable and rewarding, rather than because it provides a means to meet an extrinsic goal. That's very true. I must also quote Sting here. We've spoken about some music stuff earlier on. Sting, for example, says music is its own reward. So people who pursue art, they do slam poetry, or they do writing, creative writing, or whatever it is, sometimes they will never get anywhere with it. It just is for self-gratification. And to help them feel that they have expressed themselves artistically. People who do dance, people who do amateur theater, etc., etc. These are all noble pursuits. People who, do drag racing on the weekends, and that's really what they want to do, but unfortunately they can't get it funded. It's very difficult to get sponsorships. It's very difficult to compete, in a South African context, perhaps, etc. These are all things. And I know one of my family members told me about a chap. He was an accountant by day and a mechanic by night and on the weekends. And he really loved being a mechanic. That's what he really wanted to be. But he couldn't turn down the fact that he was making enough money, a lot of money being an accountant. So he did his accounting, and then he left his accounting job and decided to leave it. And then he did his real and true calling on the weekends, which was, being a mechanic. There's another chap as well, as I don't know his name. I forget his name. He was a pharmacist by profession, practiced pharmacy for 30 years from the age of 25 until 55 after he graduated, all the while doing art on the side. Then when he got to 55, he'd made enough money from pharmacy. He was able to sustain himself for the rest of his life. And because of that, then what he did was he quit pharmacy, had enough money to live off of, and then decided to focus exclusively on his art. And then had a 30-year career in art, just as long as he had in pharmacy, where he did his, and then he died at the age of 85, give or take. Okay, but he had this long career in art because he just decided that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to first nail down, the financial bare essentials and the necessities, and make sure that he had enough money to support himself and his family, and then focus on his true calling, which he felt was his art. But what I like about this chap is that in the ensuing years, between the age of 25 and 55, he still did art on the side. He never stopped doing his art on the side. So by the time he reached 55 and was ready to do art full time, he had an existing portfolio of work, which was very inspiring and also could help him be established as an artist. He wasn't starting art from scratch. So, guys, excuse me, this is very important. If you're working in a creative environment where you absolutely love the job and you love and some people have that. They wake up in the morning, they jump out of bed and they can't wait to get to work because it's so exciting for them. That is an example of the internal locus of control that we were speaking about earlier on, and the intrinsic motivation that they feel to move themselves forward. It's a powerful, powerful motivator. Some people have it, some people don't. I just think the people who don't have it just haven't found it because they've never activated it in themselves. I think this driving force to become a better, more successful human being is inside each one of us. It's just that success and that form takes on a different shape in every human being. Some people desire nothing more than to be successful mothers, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a beautiful, beautiful calling and a beautiful, beautiful cause to look after and raise children well. It's a wonderful thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just as important as being the president of a country or a doctor or a high court judge or whatever. You know, the head of an organization is just as important and just as fulfilling and satisfying. And that's what some women want. And some men want to be stay-at-home dads. There's nothing wrong with that. So you just need to find what it is that you can make work for you and then find ways to navigate life. That's the thing. So, all right, moving along. When intrinsic motivation is high, individuals are more likely to take risks, explore new solutions, and experiment. So again, I'm reminded of people like Newton, Copernicus, Galileo, Einstein, Oppenheimer in terms of the nuclear bomb that we spoke about, or the atom bomb we spoke about earlier on, etc. These are all people who are willing to take risks and experiment. Look, for example, speaking about the Ukraine-Russian conflict, look at Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. He started out, he studied law after school. He then decided he wants to become a comedian, and an actor. Ended up doing a TV show, I think called Serve the People, or Servant of the People, which was a TV show about a teacher who becomes the president of a country. It was very popular, and then he decided to make it reality. And he said, okay, well, I'm now going to form a political party called Servant of the People, and I'm going to stand for president. And he won. And I think it's right place, right time, because I think he's done a great job of saying, listen, Russia, we're not going to allow you to run over us and just take over. Even though this is an apolitical, religious class, guys, I do feel strongly about the fact that each country has its rights to self-determination, and that Zelensky is saying, no, we're not going to allow you to determine our future for us. We are an independent, sovereign nation. Please respect our boundaries, and please allow us to determine our own future inside Europe and as part of NATO, much to the chagrin of Russia. Okay, but you can see, guys, he's highly motivated. Lots of people are. Find what it is that drives you and then run with it. Okay, so the state of flow is so gratifying that people will tolerate low pay, for example, working in the media industry. If media is your passion, well, then you definitely have done the right degree. If media is a passion and a means to an end, that's absolutely fine. Then do media to earn your money, and then find what it is that truly motivates you and run with that as well. And if media is your passion, you're very lucky. I know there's a chap that I spoke to the other day. He did chemical engineering at university. He got a master's degree. His daughter decided to study communications, and he's like, oh, well, what is she going to do with that? That's so boring. That was her choice. Nothing wrong with studying communications if you can make it fly, if it makes her happy. It's very important to do what it is that you love in life, is the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, and if guys working in the media industry is a wonderful industry to be in. If you love media, wonderful. Then run with media and make sure that you are living out your media dream. That's really important. Okay, external motivation can undermine creativity because you have evaluation, deadlines, bonuses, competition, and external motivators have been found to crowd out intrinsic motivation. So at the end of the day, also from the perspective of investment, guys, if you look at Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's investment strategy, they will go to a company, believe it or not, where they find or sense that there is gratitude, love, inspiration, and enthusiasm. If they find a company where people are grateful to be there, they love doing what they do, they are inspired by what they do, and they want to share that with the world, and they're enthusiastic towards each other, and in terms of what they put out towards the world, they think that that is a successful company that's going to do well on the stock market, it's going to have a good, prosperous, and financial future, and they will then invest in that company, buy the company, or take it public, or buy shares if it's available publicly. Okay, so again, as well, people who are very motivated, and this is what, for example, places like Google, as we're going to discover when we continue with our stuff next week and the week after, Google does this very well. They are extremely effective and very efficient at bringing people in who love to be creative and keep besotted with the IT space, you know, the online space and the interface between humans and technology. So think about that, and put that into your assignment if you want to. If you see that one of the reasons why your brand is successful is because it has enthusiastic people who are intrinsically motivated because they love what they do, and that has made their brand successful. They produce products and services that are so wonderfully in tune with what humans need that they are very successful. Then put that into your assignment. If for you this exercise is more about like a pep talk, and you say, well, thanks, Rob, I feel better after all the boring things that you said. I feel better and I want to be motivated and inspired to live the greatest life that I can, to be the greatest me that I can. Well, good. That's awesome. That's also good. That's a wonderful thing. All right, guys. So that pretty much concludes this lecture. Excuse me. We are running a little bit behind now with our lectures. We're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit. But what was very important and very good about today's lecture is we got through the rebrief of the F3 assignment with the additional important breakdowns of the marking rubric and the steps, the processes that you need to fix and finalize your assignment. Please, I remind you, you have 3 weeks left to do it. Please get cracking on it and get it done, that you can submit it in good time and that you can then do well and head into your final assignment, your summative assessment, with a good mark that's going to make you ready to finalize this course and then finalize your BBA degree. But I thank you for your time and your attention today. You must take care and have a good day or evening's rest, if you will. And I will catch up with you guys again next week. Take care of yourselves. And thank you for your attention. I appreciate you guys being in the class. Thank you so much for the opportunity to lecture to you and for you. It is my privilege and my honor. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good evening, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks, then. Let me stop sharing, and then let me stop the recording, and then let me end this lecture. Cool. Awesome. Stopping the recording. Thanks, guys. Bye.